Hey guys, today I wanted to do a video about charging and charging cables and chargers. There's a lot of bad information out there. There's no information out there in a lot of places. And there's a lot of crappy BS Chinese equipment out there. So I wanted to just talk about charging. So there's 3 parts to a charger and it's a chain link. The weakest chain will bring down everything. And the 3 chain links are the device that you're charging. Every device that you charge has a wattage and a voltage on it. And I just made it easy and wrote the voltages on here. Then there's the cables. Every cable is different. Not all of them will charge up to a certain wattage. They've got cables that are good for 15 watts, some that are good for 50 watts, 60 watts, and then now you're getting into the 100 watt range and the 240 watt range. So cables are changing, and by looking at them, you have no idea. So hopefully I can help with that by the end of the video. The last chain link are the chargers. You've got all sorts of different chargers, and this is really where you get into the Chinese knockoff situation. But everyone is different. Everyone charges different. Again, I put the wattages on here just so I know what I'm looking at. So for example, you can post something together in the right way. So I wouldn't need, for this item that can take up to 15 watts at once, it wouldn't quite make sense to pair it with a 128 watt charger and a 100 watt cord, right? For 15 watts, I would be just fine with this 45 watt charger and then this 60 watt cable. I'm gonna be able to supply this 15 watts with this 15 watts out of this setup. Same with the 65, 35, and whatever else you're charging. That's what you want to do, is just ensure that your cord and your charger are able to produce enough power, enough wattage to fully support what you're charging. It wouldn't make sense to charge this at 30 watts, because if I did that, it would literally take over twice as long to charge these batteries than it would if I just had the right charger and right cord. So it can make the difference if you're trying to keep your drone up in the air as long as possible. You need to get these batteries charged quickly. That's what I'm going to help you with. So first, the 2 types of USBs. USB-A, which is the old school style, and then USB-C. That's the USB-C. A's, just get out of the way, the A's suck. They're only good for roughly 15 watts, which would charge this at the max, and that's it. These things are just older technology, and if you have these and want to charge anything fast, throw them away. You were never going to have a USB-A and fast charging. So another example of that in the test bed, this is supposedly a fast charger. And the difference between the regular charging and the fast charging are the voltages. The amps usually stay the same. They either start with, I'm not sure if you'll be able to read this one, but they have an output of 5 volts at 2 amps, which is 10 watts, or 9 volts at basically 2 amps, which is 18 watts. And then the last one is 12 volts at 1.2 amps, which is basically, I don't know, 15 watts. So actually, that's not even as good as the second one, which is the 9 volts at almost 2 amps. But this is a Chinese knockoff. It says adaptive fast charging, but it actually isn't. And we'll show you that. So with USB-A, this is our test bed. This is a battery. Each port is capable of outputting and inputting 100 watts. So this is more than capable of handling that extra power. These always take a minute to charge. When you plug it into your phone, it says, hey, I'm charging. It actually hasn't started charging yet. What it's actually doing is communicating with your phone to try to find out what the charger is capable of and what the cable is capable of. So it doesn't immediately charge. But as you can see, this one here is, even though it says the charger is good for 9 and 12 volts, it's only getting just about 5 at 2 amps. So I've got a total of just about 9 watts for that. Let's switch to this other Chinese knockoff. This would be a regular, it's a non-fast charging port. We'll see what we get on this. Again, it has to check out the cable, check out the charger, figure out what it is. So I'm getting a little bit more out of that. 11.2, 11.7. Not bad. Well, let's switch that. Okay, and that's with their fast charging. No, it's not. I'm sorry. That's with their regular charging port. So let's go to the quote, fast charge, the Qualcomm 3.0. This one's supposed to be faster. See what it does. 5 volts, should go up to around 12. And I'm getting basically 11 watts, which is exactly what I was getting with the regular port. And it's actually more than I was getting with this supposed fast charger. Again, it says it's adaptive fast charging. It's not. It's a lie. This is Chinese knockoff. And when you buy this stuff, you just don't know. So the technology is actually patented by Qualcomm. They're the ones that have the technology for the fast and the super fast charging technology. If say this manufacturer wanted to produce it, they would have to purchase a license from Qualcomm for every one of their chargers. And they're not going to do that. But you know, the people that do are more the name brand chargers, like this. This is an Anker charger. These are more money. They're a lot of money. But they have that correct technology. They're paying for the licenses, and they have the technology to fast charge. So whether you've got a fast charge for A, which is what this is, or you don't, you're only going to get about 15 to 18 watts. That's it. So if you want USB-A, even if it's a legit Qualcomm fast charger, you're only going to get maybe 15 watts. It's just not fast enough. So if you have these and you're thinking speed, just get rid of it. They don't work. They're terrible. So switch over to the USB-C. I don't know why the USB-Cs take more wattage, but they do. There's all sorts of various types. They'll say it on the side. This one gives a couple different ports, but remember that's 128 watts amongst all three. If you plug in 2 items, it's only going to produce a total output of only 128 watts. Same with this one. So let's test this USB-C. You know, we saw we only got about 12 watts out of the USB-A. So let's plug in the 45 watt charger with a 60 watt cord and see what happens with the C. So it went all the way up to 20 volts at almost 2 amps. And you can see that we're getting 43 watts. Sorry, there we go. 43 watts out of the 45 watt charger. So this charger is pretty much doing exactly what it said it would do. 45 watts, I'm getting 43. That's great. That's what this is good for. That's about what I'm getting out of the charger. So that's good. Whether I put a 100 watt cord on it, it's not going to matter, again, remember, because this is only good for 45 watts. So the 45 watt, for example, would be good to charge this item because it's 35 watts. So any 60 watt cable with a 35 watt charger, it will support it, no problem. Don't buy the knockoff cords. Usually the smaller they are in diameter, the less wattage they'll produce. It's just about the conductor size, right? Amperage is heat, so you need larger size wires to transport the larger amperage. You can see the difference there. So once you get to 100 watts and higher, the actual cables themselves will tell you what it's supposed to be at, if this will ever focus. But it's 100 watts, you can see on there. Some of these here, this doesn't have it. This actually might be a knockoff now that I'm thinking about it, but we'll test that. But this is good for, say, 200 watts, 240 watts. All right, so we'll switch chargers. This 45 watt charger is charging essentially at 45 watts. Now we'll switch to 140 watt. See what happens here. So again, you have multiple ports. Let's put in the 140 watt charger and see what happens. It's coming up to 60. So we've got 60 watts. Oh, you know what? It's probably because of the cable. I believe I said this was good for 60 watts. We're getting 60 watts. So remember, if you don't switch the cable, that's all you're gonna get, right? In this situation where I've got 140 watts supply, 100 watts inputs, but only a 60 watt cable, I'm only ever gonna get 60 watts out of it. Let's plug in the 100 watt cable, see what happens. climbing right up there, right? We're basically getting 96 watts. So look at my charge time. We'll look at that real quick. We've got 100 watts charging this, and it's going to take 1 hour and 2 minutes to fully charge this battery. For the heck of it, let's plug in this charger. With this cable, we'll even put it on the fake Qualcomm 3.0, but it's not. So how long will this charge with USB-A? Remember, it was an hour with the 100 watt. So basically 9 hours. So using this USB-A, it's going to take 9 times longer to charge this battery than it would by simply swapping out to a USB charger, USB-C charger with the right size cord. 140 watts, 100 watt cord. It's a 100 watt input max. So we are fully utilizing the ports. We have 100 watts per port, and that's what we're getting. Well, wait a second. On this one, there's a couple ports. Does that mean that we could maybe charge it parallel? If your charger battery has 2 ports. You can parallel charge. So this is charging on 2 ports. Remember when we had an hour to charge this on one? Now it's only 44 minutes because we're parallel charging. So you are allowed to parallel charge like this if the device allows it. One thing to note, you cannot charge from one charger and then plug it in to, say, another charger. It has to be the same voltage. This one, it might actually work because these are both really good chargers. They do. So they're both really good chargers. They jumped up to the highest voltage that you can with the 20 volts. And that's what we're getting. I guess what I'm saying is if you parallel charge, the voltage has to match on both of the chargers. We got 19 volts on both chargers. So again, because this one's only 45 watts, it's only charging at basically 45 watts. So once you hit about 100 and the maximum wattage with these, it will share the load equally. So you won't have 100 on this one and 40 on this one. It will balance itself out automatically. So that's something to note. Unless you get a nicer charger. So this is a 750 watt charger. It's a lot bigger than this one. It's 140. But the neat thing about this is that it does not share its wattage between all the ports. It literally has 120 watts on each of these ports. So I'm going to get the full out of this, the full out of this, etc. And then we've got some 65 watts and then these USB-As, which again are kind of crap and we just won't use. So again, with different things that we're going to charge, this is 65 watts. And this is 35 watts. So that's a total of what, of about 100 watts? I'm going to charge, because this is 140 watts and I've got the right cables, we're going to plug both these in. And this is a really cool charger because it actually gives you your wattage on the side. So this is 65 watts. I'm charging right there about 60 or so that's pretty dang close. These aren't super accurate. If you put these 2 wattage meters together, you'll see a little bit of difference. And then on the 35 watt, I'm getting 27 watts. So load sharing is very important if you're going to use one charger to charge multiple items. If I have a 65 watt item to charge, I have a 100 watt item to charge, and I have a 35 watt item to charge, it's going to balance that load. You're not going to get a full 100, a full 60, and a full 35. You're going to take down the overall capacity of each of these items because you have too many things on your charger. So that's why it's important to, again, have one of those independently ported chargers or just have multiple chargers. So first we've got the 65 watts plugged in. Then we've got a 100 watt item plugged in. We've already exceeded the maximum amount of wattage for this charger. And then we're going to charge this 15 watt item as well. So we've got, what, 90? You've got 190 watts that we're charging out of a 140 watt charger. So let's see what this is doing and how you're actually hurting your overall performance because of that. So I'm getting 60 watts to this. That's okay. That's pretty close. I'm getting only 45 watts to this charger, which is capable of taking in 100. So you've more than doubled the time to charge this because you're overloaded. And then on this 15 watt item, I'm only getting 6 watts. So that's less than half, right? So just keep in mind, if you're gonna try to charge more than what your charger's worth, it's gonna balance those things out, and you're not gonna get the full capability out of these things. So, in this case, I would unplug this one. That should bring your full wattage back up to what it needs to be. And then I would charge the other item out of this independent charger and get your full wattage that way. So that's just something to keep in mind when sharing a load. If you're exceeding the value of your charger, you're going to slow down everything in the system. You're not going to have one that's max and then the rest that aren't. There are ways to do that, but you have to buy a special charger to do it. Anker has one where you can prioritize certain ports. But honestly, this is right here is cheaper than the big Anker port charger, and you've got independent chargers. So this is what I would recommend if we're charging multiple items like this, because it will not share the load. It will literally give you the maximum wattage out of each port, unlike that one. So I hope that kind of solves some of the questions with these. Get the maximum size charger that you can to support whatever you're charging, and get the right size cords to get you the maximum out. If I'm charging something that's 65 watts, you want at least a cable that's good for 65 watts and a charger. Same with all the other items. All right, hopefully that helps. Thanks, everybody.